Welcome to this new episode of the Duncan Cartlidge Online podcast, the online resource for construction professionals. Duncan Cartlidge Online offers more than 9 hours of video presentations that are available 24/7 for just £7 a month. Remember to subscribe through your usual podcast provider so you don't miss out on any updates, and be sure to visit our YouTube channel for additional content. It's great to have you with us again for another episode. As always, I'm joined by Barney, my red Labrador, who helps keep an eye on things and occasionally offers some valuable advice. Both Barney and I would be delighted if you could take a moment to write a review. Your feedback means a lot to us. If this is your first time listening to Duncan Cartlidge podcast, welcome. Please remember to subscribe and catch up on your previous episodes. To our existing subscribers, thank you very much for your continued support. Please help us by spreading the word about the podcast. In this jam-packed episode, we'll be taking a look at submitting a valid application for payment on account, exploring the role of robots on construction sites, and the recently published RICS Surveying Skills Report 2025. So, let's kick off with submitting a valid application for payment on account. You may have come across the case of the contractor whose application for an interim payment was refused by the client on the grounds that the application was not valid. The details are sketchy, but it occurs to me that the contractor's application was what they thought they should be paid, instead of including verifiable details of what work had actually been carried out and completed. Under the circumstances, I think the client had every right not to pay. But why, when the application was first received, the client didn't ask for greater details escapes me. It would appear that the contract was not a standard form, as certainly all major forms are highly prescriptive on how applications should be presented and prepared. Now, for contracts that do not include fair payment provisions, or for that matter adjudication, the Construction Act, which came into force in 1998, and the Scheme for Construction Contracts Regulations in 2011, which substantially amended the Construction Act, apply. The provisions of the Act and the scheme are, amongst other things, to increase clarity in construction contracts, to introduce a fairer payment regime, and to improve rights for contractors to suspend their work in non-payment circumstances. The system provides a fallback provision where the contract itself does not include the provisions specified by the Construction Act. These provisions take effect as implied terms. In addition, adjudication provision of the scheme will apply if a construction contract's adjudication procedure does not comply with the Construction Act, even in just one respect, the necessary adjudication provisions are not included in the contract, and the parties have an oral or partly oral contract and the necessary adjudication provisions are not in writing. The Construction Act applies to all construction contracts, those which are wholly in writing, partly in writing, or wholly oral. And now, going back to the case of the refused invalid payment. There is a requirement under paragraph 2 of the scheme to calculate the amount applied for as the value of the works carried out, less any sums paid at the point of issuing the application for payment. The sum the payee considers as due or was due at the payment due date, as well as the basis on which the sum was calculated, notification to be given in accordance with the contract, and the application should be clear and free from ambiguity. it would appear that these requirements had not been met, and the case will most likely go to arbitration for settlement. Doesn't do much for client contractual relationships though, does it? And now, moving on to robots on site. In October, McKinsey & Company released a report on the future of robots in the construction industry, focusing on their potential to address the ongoing skill shortages. Have we missed a trick here? Could robots be the answer to the skill shortages? The report included some concerning findings, particularly the comparison of annual percentage growth rates. Construction at just 0.4% compared to 3% in manufacturing and 2% in the general economy. This underlines just how slowly automation has progressed in construction and how reliant it still is on manual labour. Developments have greatly enhanced humanoid mobility in recent years, but further advances are needed before these robots can expertly navigate unstructured workplaces, such as a construction site. Can you imagine the situation of a very expensive high-tech robot stumbling around building sites before disappearing down a manhole? 4. While humans rely on experience, observations, directions from colleagues or maps to get around, humanoid robots navigate by processing extensive data about their surroundings, including inputs from sensors and other contextual information. Many humanoid robots can now handle unstructured tasks such as lifting irregular shaped objects. Additional improvements are still needed for more complex or delicate activities, such as operating small tools with human-level dexterity. Robots will become more valuable in construction when and if they become capable of climbing ladders and scaffolding or working on uneven terrain. Humanoid robots could be useful gang members, leaving craftspeople to concentrate on what they do best. Currently, most automation in construction is limited to off-site manufacturing of precast and prefabricated elements such as walls, floors and beams. On-site automation presents unique challenges given that each project is distinct and constantly changing. Factors such as ever-shifting workplace layouts, numerous machines and personnel in motion, and significant safety risks make on-site automation extremely complex. Additionally, many construction sites suffer from unreliable network connectivity and limited digital infrastructure. Cost is another significant barrier. For humanoid robots to be competitive with local labour, their costs must fall considerably. At present, a single humanoid robot costs between £110,000 and £380,000. For widespread adoption to become feasible, it is thought that this price must drop to between £15,000 and £35,000 per unit. What's more, a major problem is increasing robots' uptime through swappable batteries or rapid charging point during breaks to improve their viability. Now, even though $1 billion is being invested worldwide across all sectors into humanoid robots, don't expect to see Robby the robot of Forbidden Planet fame on site for quite a while. So, if Robby the robot is not going to be the answer to the skills shortage, what is? The problem is the water is constantly being muddied with all the talk of the silver bullet, AI. In an interview in Construction Management, a top 10 contractor was asked, "What technical or soft skills do you see most lacking amongst applicants?" Their reply was, "On the technical side, we're seeing a gap in digital skills, particularly around building information modelling, that's BIM, and other construction technology platforms. The industry is becoming increasingly digital, and going forward, we need people who can blend these emerging digital capabilities with traditional engineering and construction expertise." It is not an either-or situation. We need professionals who are equally comfortable reading technical drawings and navigating sophisticated digital models. In terms of soft skills, communication and people management abilities are critical. And yet, we often see candidates who haven't had enough opportunity to develop these. The ability to motivate people, resolve conflicts and communicate clearly across different levels and specialisms is a major factor in project success. When asked what are the most difficult roles to recruit at the moment and why, the answer was many roles in construction are extremely competitive to recruit right now, as companies across the sector are competing for talent with proven industry experience. And I think that is it, i.e. candidates with proven industrial experience is the key to the problem. Experienced people are leaving and are not being replaced. The contractor continued, "We've been talking about skill shortages in construction for well over a decade. It isn't new. But it does mean that we all need to think differently. We need to look outside the sector for people with transferable skills and support them in gaining relevant experience, while also investing in entry-level training programs to build a pipeline for the future." And now moving on to the recently published RICS Surveying Skills Report 2025. The headline: "A shortage of quantity surveyors is hampering capacity and output on more than half of construction projects." But is that the whole story? The long-awaited RICS Surveying Skills Report was finally published in October. The report drew on the opinions of around 2,300 RICS members who responded to a survey. At the same time the report was published, the acting president of the RICS warned that the shortage of quantity surveyors had reached crisis point. He's temporarily standing in while the regular president, Justin Sullivan, aka Mothman, hides in the wings. Wings, see what I did there? There's a sense of urgency with concerns mounting that the popularity of building surveying as a career is waning. I've heard that some RICS accredited building surveying courses will not be recruiting next year, and existing students will be taught out due to insufficient interest. I did a quick desktop survey on Google to find out what the average salary was of a qualified building surveyor, and it's coming out at about £40,000 to £50,000 a year. Of course, building surveying is a comparatively new dedicated RICA pathway, as once it was an option for general practitioners. Demographic issues are particularly acute in the building surveying sector, highlighted by around 2/3 of the survey respondents to the RICS survey. However, similar patterns are being seen in other surveying disciplines, although respondents in the UK were especially vocal about these concerns, more so than their counterparts around the world. The RICS survey showed that attracting enough new talent into the profession remains a significant issue. Several responses pointed out to the comparatively low starting salaries in surveying, particularly when compared with other STEM, that's science, technology, engineering and mathematics fields, as well as stiff competition from other industries. Unsurprisingly, younger respondents, those aged 17 to 34, were particularly concerned about the starting salaries, with about half identifying this as a key issue. Certainly, discussions on LinkedIn seem to agree that the shortage of quantity surveyors is, in a large part, due to uncompetitive salaries, which is driving people away from the industry. Addressing this could be key to reversing the trend. Expanding the pool of potential surveyors by making the profession more attractive to newcomers is seen absolutely vital. On a somewhat more positive note, the survey found that those currently working in the sector are keen to gain new skills that will equip them for the future. I wonder whether that's a true reflection or just a view of a small percentage of RICS members who engaged with the skills survey. My experience is that it's very difficult to get professionals interested in CPD, either face-to-face or online. The core question remains: what steps must the industry take to address both the current crisis and future requirements for the built and natural environment? Many of the proposed solutions will sound familiar. Increased emphasis on apprenticeships, better promotion of surveying as a career, broader mentoring opportunities, and more effective training programs. While these initiatives are underway, the general feeling is that progress is too slow to replace an aging workforce. The survey's message is clear. RICS, industry, government and academia must work more closely together to make surveying a more appealing profession. Greater collaboration is essential to develop solutions and prepare the profession for the future challenges. Now, where have I heard that before? The fact is that from my experience that industry and academia have never seen eye to eye. Academia favours education to produce scholars, while industry favours training to turn out oven-ready, self-basting graduates. In August, in response to the skills shortage, the RICS announced 2 proposed new qualification pathways, one on residential retrofit and another on sustainability, with a third pilot programme planned for 2026. Furthermore, their new professional standard referred to in a previous episode on the responsible use of artificial intelligence in surveying practice will come into effect, aiming to protect and support both members and the wider public, and to ensure that surveyors are well equipped to adapt to this technological evolution. And finally, looking ahead, we have the budget in a few weeks. For all the talk of 1.5 million homes over this Parliament, grand infrastructure projects, levelling up towns and cities, what the industry craves is not rhetoric, but delivery. Accountants EYP reported last week that the number of listed firms issuing profit warnings is up threefold compared with this time last year, due to cancellations and delays. Richard Steer of Leeds, writing in Building Magazine, remarks that the Chancellor has already flown more kites than Mary Poppins before her fiscal event on November the 26th. Her unprecedented preparatory speech in Downing Street only added to a sense of anticipation. She has all but poleaxed the housing sector with her speculation around stamp duty reform and taxation. Even the mainstream media are now openly dismissing the government's house building targets, describing them variously as rhetoric, gaslighting and lies. And while on house building targets, the collapse of Ascent, one of the country's largest building control firms and a key player in the building safety regulator gateway approval process, is seen as another blow. Well, on that happy note, that's all for this episode. I hope that you found it both interesting and informative. Thank you for listening right through to the end. Barney and I truly admire your stamina. This has been another episode from Duncan Cartlidge Online. We'd really appreciate it if you could help us out by spreading the word, subscribing, and, if you have the time, writing a review. Until next time, take care.